How do you gear up your fresh alt in World of Warcraft patch 8.3 as a mostly solo casual player? In this video I will tell you exactly what to do. What is the best way to gear up in World of Warcraft for a casual player who is not part of an actively raiding guild or who chooses to play solo? Not being supported by a group of friends they could run Mythic Plus dungeons with or do similar organized activities with. Welcome to my nice and easy alt gearing guide that I've written up based on what offers you, in my opinion, the biggest bang for your buck of time investment. We will start with item levels well under 400 and virtually head over to roughly 450. Which is what I see currently as the highest realistically attainable item level for a non-raiding and solo playing casual. If you're new here, warm welcome to you. My name is Gyro and I run Horrific Visions solo on many alts, produce occasional simple class and content guides, and stay on top of the latest Shadowlands news and interviews. Please show your support and subscribe if you have not already. Let's get started with the gearing guide then. First thing I do to gear up my alt is mail them any of the BoA bind on account Black Empire gear that I've picked up here and there on my other characters. That gear is item level 410 and is relatively good early on. Just like a first check you receive in the mail from your rich uncle, if you have one. If your uncle is not particularly rich but you still have one, this second step is for you. Eye-level 410 BoA Black Empire gear drops are actually not very plentiful these days compared to any BoA gear that we used to in the history of World of Warcraft during Legion, for example. A lot of slots are likely to be still missing for you, such as the shoulders that no one ever can find. I only had maybe one of those drop for me on my other characters, chests and helmets. While you'll pick up a few pieces of gear as you do the quests that we'll talk about in a second, at this point I always pick one of my characters who has more than 5 Najata mana pearls, go to Najata hub and buy some eye level 385 BoA gear to fill those gaps for my alt straight away. Awkward uncle jokes aside, these first two steps are obviously not applicable to any players who did not have high-level mains or more advanced alts. Accept the early war campaign quests and go through the story stuff leading you to Baralas for the Alliance and Zuldazar for the Horde. I believe you should be given the quest to unlock world quests pretty much straight away, prioritize doing that, then immediately move on to next steps of this guide before you start sweeping the map for gear. We are doing that to raise our item level as much as we can before picking up any gear from the world quests, as those rewards will scale with your eye level and you obviously want the highest bang for your buck when you can help it. The story will take you to Najata and bounce you between unlocking world quests in the new zone and sending you to get Heart of Azeroth with Magni. Do all of that, which will give you decent shoulders of eye level around 400 and some additional 385 benthic gear from Najata. Depending on if you've mailed any BoAs to your fresh alt already, you might not need some of those rewards. Quick advice here as an altoholic, there is a very early Najata quest that gives you 20 mana pearls to upgrade a piece of equipment. As you'll be moving on to Azeroth assaults and higher item level rewards very quickly, I recommend that you take those mana pearls but don't complete the quest, and either use mana pearls to buy any BoA benthic gear for the slots you need, or simply save those mana pearls to spend them on your future alts according to the step 2 of this mini guide. Once you've done everything to unlock Najata world quests, you'll get sent to Stormwind or Zuldazar to start your Black Empire campaign. Do that, then simply follow the very annoying travels around the world with Magni, getting some good pieces of gear along the way. Getting your legendary Cloak is a priority right now, and it'll become your highest eye level piece by far, bumping your item level and unlocking other content for you sooner. I'm talking about the latest raid in LFR, which unlocks at your item level 410. But I can't imagine that you'd be at that point just yet. Luckily, there are other options to bump your eye level up further. Let's take a look at those. Do your PvP weekly Brawl and hope for the win. This gives you something different quest that awards 430 item level gear, if I'm not mistaken. That's a nice little boost to your eye level, and it is very easy to get straight up. Check the Battlefront table in your main hub. If there are any heroic battlefronts open, especially the Darkshore one, do that straight away, as the eye level 460 piece that you will get will bump your item level even further and closer to those 410s, 420s overall that you need to start qualifying for other content. See where the world boss is this week, in Uldum or in Vale of Eternal Blossoms. At this stage and your very low item level, it's absolutely recommended to buy that Seal of Horrific Fate or whatever it's called from the Ethereal in your main hub and use that bonus roll on the kill of the world boss for your chance of an item level 445. Pray that it's a ring, as rings are among those things that are hardest to come by these days. Thanks, Blizz. Now, it appears that we're finally out of any special or bonus options to bump up your gear. Time to do one of the following. First, start queuing up for heroic dungeons. One would obviously argue that you should have been doing it all along from get-go, straight up, but I disagree. I've listed other options first because I think those are better value for the time that you will spend on them, if compared to running dungeons that may or may not give you any equipment at this early stage, and even if you get something, it'll be too low item level, so it won't last you any significant amount of time. Second, start pushing Horrific Visions solo. My channel was founded on the idea of solo Horrific Vision runs, and you'll find a lot of videos here talking about low eye level alts and how they are faring compared to each other in terms of clearing more than one chest objective and giving you some decent loot in the process. Plus, all of that loot is now guaranteed to have some form of corruption on it. And corruption effects are driven by RNG, which is a hated system that Blizzard is implementing left and right these days in BFA, but because this is what we have to play with, use the main source of that corrupted gear to boost your strength rather than just item level. Your gains of gear are limited to one item per combination of cleared chests or masks per week, meaning that you can only get one for 20, one for 30, one for 40 item per week once you've managed to clear the Horrific Vision with that progressively increasing number of chests. Still, it's fun, until it becomes quite stressful for a casually geared alt at higher mask levels, and it's a very decent source of gear that you could start exploring pretty early on. Take a look at the other videos on my channel if you're new here, there is plenty of proof to this point. Start completing world quests that give you gear, prioritizing weapons, trinkets and rings, and doing emissary chest objectives that give you Azerite boost that will help you level your Heart of Azeroth and bump your item level each time by a little bit. Everything counts. Don't forget to queue for LFR as soon as you've reached eye level 410. It can be quite painful and long experience to wait in the queue and get through the raid, but trinkets and weapons you'd get from there are often very well worth your time as a casual, with not many other options of getting that gear available. Finally, this is the moment you probably have been waiting for. Look for Mythic and Mythic Plus groups. Yes, you could have started doing it very early on, but again, I don't think you'd have many chances of being taken seriously until you reach eye level 430 plus and properly assess what role in a dungeon do you want to play. By default, everyone is sticking to DPS. It's not to say that it's easy to be a good DPS, quite the opposite. But it is the most present and widely spread out role that gets filled up in dungeons and LFR the quickest. The slightly less obvious trick that I wanted to wrap this video up with is to highly recommend you to consider a healing role at this stage of the game, at least temporarily. Yes, tanks are always up in very high demand, but the tanking role is also much harder to perform, especially in Mythic Plus, even in lower keys up to 4, let's say. DPS is almost always expected to overgear content, so for the baseline Mythic Plus 0, or just normal Mythic in other words, that rewards item level 430 gear, there will be people queuing with item levels far above 430. Even if you're good DPS for your item level range, nobody cares, and the group leader will always pick some 445 or a board 450 from the queue, and you'll keep just sitting there. So either you start your own group as an undergeared DPS and hope for the best, good luck with that, or you change your spec to healing, if your class obviously allows that. Watch a guide or two on YouTube how to heal on your character. For example, I have one coming right up for Resto Shaman and the other classes after that, and then you queue up as heals. I guarantee that you'll get into groups quicker and won't have too much trouble keeping the tank and the others alive, as long as you don't get too cocky too early and don't queue up for harder keys where people might be desperate to invite you, but you'll find it way too stressful to try and keep everyone alive, and you might fail and not enjoy the process, burning out very early. The biggest gearing challenge, without a doubt, is getting your weapons and upgrading them, which is why I mentioned this bit kinda separately in this guide. There are the following sources of the weapons that you can consider as a casual player. First of all, world quests will very occasionally offer you a 415 blue weapon, which is better than nothing and better than something lower that you might be having right now. Secondly, you could grind up conquest points by doing a variety of battlegrounds to get to 440 piece of gear, a weapon, but I find that horribly tedious, and in 99% of cases when I did try to do that, to test it early on, I'd already have a better weapon by the time I was able to get enough conquest points to receive that PvP one. The third option here is, and it's a much easier option to get a weapon, you need to just simply get a couple of marks of honor, earn some honor points that I earned from 1 or 2 random battlegrounds that you'd hopefully win, and then you head over to Hillsbrad Foothills, just above Terran Mill, to find your faction's entrance to Alterac Valley Battleground. There are vendors there, outside, who will sell you very decent and alt-friendly weapons of eye level 410, I believe. You could also get a few other pieces of equipment from them, such as rings. Very highly recommend you to do that, even if you don't need weapons, but rings will still help you get started on your item level powering up journey. The only real problem is that those vendors don't offer you weapons for every class and spec, so some are left to their own devices. For example, my Enhancement Shaman couldn't get anything from a PvP vendor. Your fourth option is with time-walking vendors, who appear in the world reasonably regularly, as you know, during the weeks of time-walking dungeons, and just like PvP vendors, they don't have something for absolutely everyone, but usually can have a piece of equipment, a trinket or a weapon for a half-naked alt here and there. It's definitely worth keeping your eye on the in-game events calendar and not miss your opportunity to bump up your item level by that little bit, propelling yourself forward to better content. Your option number 5 is LFR. LFR is providing you a solid source of 430 weapons, even though you have to be lucky, and often, especially if you're desperate, you need to have one of those Seals of Fate prepared so that you can have a bonus roll and spend it wisely. Your sixth option is to continue running Heroic Darkshore and pray to dear Lord that you will be lucky, like my DK was, with getting a 460 weapon, because 460 weapon for a solo casual is absolutely a god roll, as they say in some other games. And finally, Mythics and Mythic Plus runs are definitely a source of weapons, and probably, in my humble opinion, one of the few reasons for you to even bother running Mythic Plus. Simply because it's quite stressful, you require coordination with people, and it's not always very enjoyable, especially if you're a DPS. That's it for today, my friends. I really hope you enjoyed that little guide. Please let me know in the comments down below if you did, and I will continue adding similar guides, possibly about other aspects of the game, something else that I can share with you as my fellow altoholics and horrific vision solo pushers who are waiting for Shadowlands Alpha. Much appreciated. Talk to you soon.